Like, seriously? Seriously. I love this little thing. Seriously. So cute. So cute. Glass pumpkins made from something in the baking aisle? That's right. In today's video, we're making a pumpkin substrate for your fall tablescape using something you might not expect. And we'll cover it in various shades of beautiful orange glass. But don't worry, you can also use other materials too. This pumpkin goes perfectly with your collection. Let's get to it. Welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Julie, and on this channel we talk about tips, tricks, tools, adhesives, materials, and specific mosaic projects, all to shorten your learning curve when it comes to creating mosaic art. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please consider subscribing. For those of you who have watched my videos here on the channel, especially in the last few months, and at the time of filming this, it's about mid-October, you can tell that I've got a soft spot for pumpkins. Doesn't matter if they're pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns, I'm gonna jump at the chance to do a pumpkin mosaic, something or other. And we have here on the channel. No matter the shape, the color, the size, or the materials. And today's video is extra special because we're going to create the substrate as well. This doesn't happen too often. Normally, we're just applying mosaic to a ready-made substrate. The substrate I'll show you today is quick and very easy to make, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. For the tesserae, I used various types of glass to mosaic the pumpkin. This technique of using a variety adds interest to the mosaic. You can also use other tesserae types like ceramic or porcelain, and we'll talk more about that later in the video. The tiling for the pumpkin went rather quickly. In fact, it took me less than a couple hours. And that was mostly just to give the adhesive time to dry a little before moving on to another section. So if you've got just a short window of time to do mosaic, then this pumpkin would work out perfectly for your schedule. Now, I chose not to grout this mosaic pumpkin. You can certainly choose to grout yours. I just chose not to, and it's a matter of personal preference, that's all. So this pumpkin is quick, easy, and pretty low cost to make, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So whether you're making one, or maybe you'd like to make a bunch for, let's say, a dinner party, or just to give to friends during the fall season, this is not a break-the-bank type of mosaic project. It's going to take more of your time, really more of your patience, and I'll explain that in a minute, but more of your patience than your money. I'll be displaying mine on my coffee table alongside the mosaic pumpkin that I made in a previous video here on the channel. And I'll include a link down below in the description if you'd like to check it out. That project is probably one of my most favorite recent projects here on the channel. So in today's video, I'll talk about how I created the substrate. I'll also show you how I cut the various types of glass. And we'll talk about the adhesive I used, and of course, the tiling. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Let's talk about the substrate and the tesserae for this project. First up is the handmade substrate. I made it from leftover thin-set mortar, which is a cement-based adhesive. I've also used leftover grout and cement to make substrates just like these. And believe it or not, to create the pumpkin shapes, I used a silicone mold from the baking aisle. Yes, the baking aisle. I like this one because the openings are big and deep. I did a whole video here on my channel all about how to use silicone molds to create your own substrates, and I'll include a link down below in the description so you can check it out. Once your substrates are dry, you can pull them out of the mold. Now, because this mold is 2 halves of a pumpkin, I needed to basically glue the 2 halves together. So I mixed up a small batch of thin-set mortar and adhered them together. Think of this as if you're making whoopie pies or macaroons. And then I let them sit and dry for at least 24 hours before I handled them. Now, doing this makes things much easier during the tiling phase if the 2 halves are firmly cemented together. And you'll see once I get to the tiling that the substrate is handled a lot. And then once the pumpkin is dry and cured, I like to look it over and use a file to go over any rough spots. Now, I'm doing this because the tesserae I'll be using are basically the same thickness, and I'd like for the pieces to lay as flat as possible on the substrate. So go slow and be careful when filing things down. You don't want to go at it too rigorously. And once you've filed away any rough spots, there's no other prep work involved, so your substrate is ready to go. And for the tesserae, as I mentioned a little earlier, I used various types of glass on the substrate. I chose vitreous glass, stained glass, and smalty in various shades of orange. Some are even iridescent. Now, for the stem, I used a few pieces of scrap vitreous glass in a variety of greens. I want you to have fun with the tesserae. You can use other materials besides glass. You could create a mixed media pumpkin and incorporate a variety of materials like porcelain or ceramic. You could even cut up glass rods, or include orange millefiori or beads. It's up to you. I just stuck with various types of glass so that it would match the pumpkin it'll be sitting next to. I'll include a list down below in the description for all of the materials, tools, substrate molds, and adhesive and extra goodies that I'm using in today's video in case you'd like to create a mosaic pumpkin of your own. You can access this information by clicking the Show More underneath the video description. And that's if you're on your computer. If you're on your tablet or your phone, you'll want to click the down arrow to the right of the video title. Now that we've talked about the substrate and tesserae, it's time to get to the tiling. So to get started, I went through my inventory of orange vitreous glass in the 3/4 inch square size and started pulling out pieces onto my project trays. Now, as you know, vitreous glass has ridges on one side and it's smooth on the other side. This makes it really handy when you're cutting straight lines in the tesserae. So I used my wheeled glass nippers to cut 3 even pieces from each square of vitreous. For the stained glass, I used a glass cutter and running pliers to score and break down pieces into the same width and length as the vitreous glass. So in other words, I use the vitreous glass as my guide for the stained glass, and then you'll see also for the Smalty. And speaking of the Smalty, I cut pieces in half, which thin them out, so to speak, so that they'd be similar in thickness to the vitreous and stained glass. The adhesive I used on this pumpkin is thin-set mortar. As I mentioned earlier, thin-set mortar is a cement-based adhesive. I think it's the best solution for this pumpkin since there are curves and I need a good, somewhat stiff adhesive to grab onto the substrate and the tesserae. Cement-based adhesives allow you to level out your tesserae that aren't the same thickness if that's something you're interested in. And cement-based adhesives usually come in white and gray and can be changed. I've done a number of videos here on the channel all about cement-based adhesives as well as grout, how to mix them up, are they fortified or not, how to color or tint them, and I will include a link to the playlist down below in the description so you can check it out. Other suitable adhesives for this project would include silicone, tile adhesive, also known as mastic, and even epoxy sculpt. So I got started with the tiling by holding up tesserae on the substrate to see where they would meet. I wanted to avoid tesserae shooting out from the substrate whenever possible. And by doing this, I also got an idea of how many rows across the pumpkin I would be able to fit. Now, since this isn't a grouted mosaic, I can place tesserae right up next to each other. In fact, I place the tesserae so that they are touching. So I got started tiling across the top of the pumpkin in front of the raised stem area. And I tiled all the way down the side until the tile just about touched my work table. So I didn't tile the bottom of the pumpkin just yet. And I continue tiling rows and rows of the orange glass across the top and sides of the substrate all the way down until they just about met my work table. Once I was done tiling the rows of orange glass on the top and the sides, I got to work on the bottom of the pumpkin. I continued tiling this area in the same exact way as I did on the top and the sides, just tiling rows and rows. Before I started tiling on the two flat areas of the substrate, I did in fact tile one more row of glass along the area of the substrate where the sides and the flat area meet. And I tiled those pieces at a slight angle. Next, I got to work tiling one of the flat areas of the substrate. Now this could be the front or the back, it doesn't matter, they'll both be tiled the exact same way. I went with a simple vertical line glass pattern, just like I did on the top and down the sides. Again, I just tiled rows and rows of the glass on both sides of the pumpkin. For the stem, I went dumpster diving in my container of small cutoffs and found a variety of green vitreous glass. You guys know that I love my little dumpster of glass cutoffs and it came in handy this time. I used the existing stem shape on the substrate as my guide and just tiled along it on both sides. Then I capped off the top of the stem with a few tesserae. I'll take one last inspection of the tiled substrate to see if I missed any spots and to make sure no pieces got dislodged or moved while it was being handled during tiling. And there you have it, an adorable little mosaic pumpkin made from a thin-set mortar substrate, which was destined for the trash, and was then covered in gorgeous shades of orange mixed glass. It's perfect for your fall tablescape or as part of the festive place setting at your next dinner party. I'll include a list down below in the description for all of the materials, tools, substrate molds, and extra goodies that I used in today's video in case you'd like to create a mosaic pumpkin of your own. Question of the day, let me know down in the comments if you like to use a variety of tesserae in your mosaic work, and if so, what's your favorite combination? I would love to hear. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up as it really does help my channel, and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification so you never miss a single upload, and let me know in the comments if there's something you'd like me to cover in a future video. I'll see you soon. Bye. How are we looking? Like, wow. And if you have a lot of glass cutoffs, man, this thing is like pennies to make. Well, maybe not pennies, but like whatever. Wow. Maybe that's what I should have asked as the question of the day. Are you having sweater weather outside?
So cute, too little guy.
Okay, let's get serious, folks. Get serious. Me and the little pumpkin say thank you. See you soon. We have a pumpkin to talk about here. Serious. You'd like to create a, I was doing so good. I was doing so good. And cut. Can you see how excited I am about the tiling? Substrate mold and no. If you're looking for more mosaic inspiration, you can check out one of these two videos. Until then, see ya. Thanks guys, I'm so glad you're here. I'll see you soon. Bye.